Hello everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I'm David Jones. I do this usually every week. It's been a bit draining, I think, this week, to be honest. I've not done much. I bought T-bonds, I got stopped out of those. I went short the Nikkei, the Japanese index, earlier this week. That's doing okay so far. I mean, US stock markets, the decline has continued. Pretty volatile week, very much driven by, what's going on, what's coming out of the US government, I think. So it really can change, not even day by day, sometimes every couple of hours. There was a really strong rally late in the session yesterday. Where was it yesterday? Oh no, it wasn't. It was 3 o'clock early on, and that faded in the US. So it's strange times. We've had the payrolls out, the US unemployment numbers. They came out an hour ago. I think they were broadly in line with expectations, weren't they? I don't think there was too much of a miss either way. I can't remember. I think it was 160 expected, and it came in at 151,000. So blah, nothing too crazy there. So just how this works, we'll have a look at the major economic announcements for next week. Then we'll jump on and have a look at some of the markets you want to look at, and then we will look at the markets I want to look at, all the major markets. Then if there's any markets you want to look at, if you want to put them in the comments. I saw someone's put in a comment, any thoughts about BRIC USD? I've got no idea what BRIC USD is. Oh, is it a cryptocurrency? All right, we'll have a look at that. But any other markets you want to look at, put them in the comments. We'll take a look. So before we get going, let's just get some of the housework out of the way. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. I mean, I found it really quite a draining week. I'll be glad to see the back of this week, actually. It's been an okay year for me so far, thanks to the DAX. I've done a few trades on the DAX, the German market. We'll take a look at that, which has just defied gravity again this week. So we'll take a look at that. But I think, I think it could go either way at the moment. I run a WhatsApp group, and one of the things I said yesterday was, no one ever knows with 100% certainty which way markets are going to go. And if anybody tells you they know with 100% certainty, they're either deluded or just a con man. But there are definitely times that are even more uncertain than other times. And I think that's where we are at the moment. It could all change, couldn't it? There could be an announcement over the weekend about something or other, tariffs or whatever, or something to do with Ukraine. And we got a completely different market on Monday morning. So, strange times. And I think getting away from it all and letting it all settle down is not a bad idea at all at times like this. Anyway, next week, what have we got next week? Japanese GDP, so Japanese economic data on Monday, and then on Wednesday, US inflation. I mean, inflation is still a hot topic. What does it mean for interest rates and all of that sort of stuff? It has perhaps faded into the background over the last couple of weeks, but I think it is still a big thing. So for me, that's the big one to watch next week, Wednesday, the US inflation data. Okay, and that's it. Let's get into the markets, I think. So if we take a big picture view of like the S&P at the moment. So this is the broader US stock market. I think this is just a normal pullback in a trend. We saw this market, the S&P, hit fresh all-time highs less than a month ago, so about 3 weeks ago. The market's pulled back. It has fallen through the trend line, but it hasn't really taken out any previous major lows. So I still feel like this is a buying opportunity, but I don't want to be a buyer just yet because the market is still sliding. So, but I think it's one of those things where, are we going to look back in 3 months' time and thinking, oh, well, all that tariff craziness is coming on. What a great buying opportunity that was. Let's see. Let's see if the thing stops, first of all. But this is where we are from a big picture S&P point of view. this is where we are. I think if we start losing those November lows down around 5,700, then I think then there is perhaps something more to worry about. If we take a look at the Nasdaq, so these are the actual indices with the 24-hour market taken out. There we go. Look at that. That is like the most textbook of textbook trends, isn't it? And the Nasdaq again very briefly moved out to fresh all-time highs middle of Feb, and has pulled back to November lows. But the trend is still intact. You could say, you know, one of the concerns is perhaps that move out by the Nasdaq and the S&P to fresh all-time highs in middle of February. There was no follow-through from that market, from those markets. So perhaps that is the sign of a market running out of steam. But for me now, these trends are still up. So it's interesting times in these markets. Crazy times. You know, we've seen a big decline. If you look at the Nasdaq off those highs, let me just tidy some of this stuff up. So where are we trading now? 20,000 pretty much. And a couple of weeks ago, yeah, is it a couple of weeks ago? Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, the Nasdaq was above 22,000. So it's lost 10% in the space of a couple of weeks. So it's a big slide. You know, it's absolutely a big slide. It is still weak. You know, going into today, US markets have just opened and they're still weak. But interesting to see what happens down around all this support. So an interesting time for US markets. I am waiting to see if the weakness stops. I'd be a buyer if the weakness stops. But for now, at least, that weakness is not stopping. And these markets are still on the slides. So that's it. That's it for me, for US markets. If we look at Europe, you know, I mean, the performance in the DAX has been, I mean, nothing short of incredible. I think, you know, if we go back to the beginning of 2025, beginning of this year, the DAX was about 19,800 and it touched 23,500 almost this week. So we have seen, you know, a massive outperformance by the DAX, the German market. That's what the big picture looks like. It was only yesterday we saw it hit a fresh all-time high. So I would be a buyer of the dip. You know, I've done a couple of trades on the DAX in the last 2 weeks. They've worked really well because the trend has been on my side. You know, so I've been a buyer of the dip. But for me, it's probably one for next week. I think the DAX trades. We did see it. You know, last Friday's low was wherever it was, 22,110. I think I bought on Monday or Tuesday of this week, and it sort of chopped around a bit, and then again just got a massive move up. You know, so let's see. I'd buy the pullback in the DAX. It has been an absolute outperformer of a market this year. Let's see if that continues. The other market, I do have a trade on this one, the Spanish 35. Again, these European markets, some of these European markets, you know, have seen good performances this year. That's the Spanish. So those are the lows from December, around 11.4, traded up to 13.4. So it did not quite 20% in a couple of months, but, you know, above 15% rise in a couple of months. So again, the Spanish index, I am long at the moment. I'd be a buyer of a dip in that because the trend is still up. It's been a bit choppy the last couple of days, but I'm sure, like I've said a couple of times, a very different picture between Europe and the US at the moment. FTSE, I'm long the FTSE as well. That's come back this week. But again, the FTSE 100, the UK market, beginning of this week, hit fresh all-time highs. The trend is still up. If I had to do a trade today on the FTSE, I'd absolutely be a buyer. It's been knocked back. These old lows from a couple of weeks ago, 8,600, held the FTSE up. So interesting to see what happens there. But I'm long the FTSE. And the other trade, the Japanese market was interesting. I'm sure the Nikkei, because it had been stuck. Let me just get rid of some of this stuff. You know, it had been stuck in this sideways trend. Bang, 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 since October. And it started breaking down. So I sold it on, I think it'd be Wednesday this week. There was a rally. Is it here? Yeah, somewhere in here. Sold it with a stop above 38.5, I think. So that's done all right. So I'm sure the Nikkei. So that's just drifting, really. Let's see what next week brings for that. So, yeah, real mixed picture of stock market indices going in different directions. So, that's that. Very confused picture, I think, but particularly for the US. I mean, again today, I mean, look at the volatility today. I mean, all right, it's payrolls. On an hourly chart, it doesn't look like much because we have had so much volatility. But when the payrolls came out, the S&P moved almost 50 points. So let's see what today's brings. I suppose an aggressive trade, if you really wanted to have a bit of a punt on the S&P today, the lows from earlier in the week are around 57.30. All right, they were threatened yesterday. They've been threatened a bit today, but we haven't really seen a big sell-off through it. So that's perhaps an interesting, if you thought, is the S&P trying to make a base here? Let's see what happens. But, with markets at the moment, if Mr. Trump decides to say anything this afternoon, it can be 3% higher, 3% lower in the blink of an eye. So, strange times. Dollar index, absolutely clobbered, the dollar index. So, just this week, last Friday's high on the dollar index, so this is the dollar against a basket of other currencies, was 107.66, and here we are at 103.58. So the market's moved 400 points over the last week. It's a big move. An interesting one going into next week, on the way up for the dollar index. We had this support at 103.70 early November for the dollar index. Let's see if it holds on again. It's oversold on the RSI, 10-day RSI. First time it's been oversold since the summer. So interesting to see how that all pans out. So for me, I've not caught any of this, but I think it's an interesting one for next week to see what happens with the dollar index there. Obviously, the dollar getting hit because of what we're seeing happening in the US. If we look at gold, I mean, gold's had a good week. Maybe considering the fall in the dollar, I'd have expected it to be perhaps a bit more dramatic. We had a bit of a bounce back, quite a strong bounce back, off the Friday lows into Tuesday, and it's been a bit sideways since then. Considering the dollar is falling like a stone, I would have thought that perhaps gold would have got a bit more of a move on, but it hasn't. But there we are. But, in the great scheme of things, the trend in gold is up. So I'd absolutely still be a buyer of the dip in gold. I'd rather buy a bigger dip. But, again, all-time highs in gold towards the end of Feb. So that's a strong market. So let's see what happens with that one next week. Silver, I mean, silver's always a bit of an odd one, isn't it? I mean, the trend is up in silver. It's not doing anything too dramatic. I never look at silver. So, but the trend absolutely is up. So I'd be a buyer of a dip in silver. If you have a look at Bitcoin, again, a funny old week for the cryptos, but, we saw it. We had that big move over the weekend, didn't we? On news of six cryptos nominated to be part of some sort of Bitcoin crypto reserve thing. I don't know. I tuned it out. But we did have a big move on that on Sunday. And the market gave it all up again. This is Bitcoin, gave it all up again. So I don't know how important that is really. I mean, clearly the weakness in the US dollar is helping here. Absolutely, the big trend in Bitcoin is up. But it's all a bit sideways over the last couple of months. So to be honest, there's not too much for me to get excited about in that area at the moment. So let's see what happens there. But nothing, it's just chopping it. Okay, it's lots of volatility, but the big trend is up, but no real direction, I would suggest, over recent weeks. Oil's the interesting one. I mean, oil. If you want to buy oil, this is the place to buy it. If you thought we're going to see a massive surge in the oil price, it's really interesting down here. We've had this decline in oil from $80 a barrel in mid-Jan to down to, what did it touch on Wednesday? 65. So it's a 20% fall in the oil price in about 6 weeks. That is a sizable fall. What's interesting is, where we are on oil, down here, this sort of 62 to 65, let's just call it the low 60s, has been a massive base for oil going back almost 4 years now, 3.5 years. So are we going to see the buyers of oil come back in? Let's see what happens. I must admit, I'd probably in the short term be tempted to go short oil into a rally. What does that look like? So we are having a bit of a rally at the moment, but we've had rallies all the way down since the middle of January, and they've proved to be Is unsustainable the right word? Probably, I don't know. Unsustainable. So I'd still be tempted to perhaps be a seller of strength in oil for now. But it is interesting from a more longer term perspective that we are back down at what has historically, over the last 3.5 years anyway, been viewed as something of a base for the price of oil. So that's interesting to watch going into next week, I think, what's going on with the oil price. Natural gas doing its thing. Fresh highs for the year in natural gas on Tuesday. I mean, the trend for natural gas is up. Again, it's as volatile as ever, just this week. So the Monday low was 380. The Tuesday high was 460. So that's a 20% move in, not even 48 hours in natural gas. So as crazy as ever, but I'd be a buyer of the dip on natural gas just because the trend is up. So yeah, there we go. That's natural gas. Not too much more to say about that. I think oil's the one to watch next week, and I would go short. I'd be tempted to go short if it runs out of steam again. Is it going to have another look at those low 60s? Let's see what happens next week. That's maybe an interesting market to watch in the short term, and maybe even this afternoon. So when it comes to currencies, obviously with this dollar weakness, we're seeing the likes of sterling against the dollar, pound against the dollar, up to its best levels. Sorry, I'm getting over a bit of lurgy, I think, like a few people, I think, at the moment. There seems to be a lot going around at the moment. Back to its best levels since November last year. Highs for the year so far, blah, blah. So dollar weakness driving that. There was a good buying opportunity. I didn't do it, though. There was a good buying opportunity last Friday in pound against the dollar. It dropped back to the lows. It dropped back to like a 10-day low. Ahead of 125.60, something like that. And then it hasn't really looked back. It's been a big old move, pound against the dollar. But there we are. There we go. That's absolutely still strong at the end of this week. And of course, with the dollar just falling out of bed like it is, that's what we'd expect, But let's see if this dollar index turns around on these lows. Let's see what happens next week. So that's that. What else we got to talk about? I think that's it, isn't it? I am quite exhausted by this week. I've not done many trades, but I think the markets have been so crazy. It's been a bit painful. I'd be glad to see the back of it. I think I said in the WhatsApp group, it'd be quite nice actually to just take March off and think, right, there's so much craziness going on at the moment. Have a bit of time away from it because the dust will settle, the markets will still be there in April. Let's see if everything's sorted itself out, But I think it is a challenging time. And speaking to a few people in the trading industry, brokers, people tend to be the wrong sides of trends. When they're volatile like this, it's even worse, So I think it's a painful time for a lot of people trading at the moment. Obviously, it's great if you're, short indices and short dollar index. But a lot of people trying to catch the turn, getting their fingers burnt. So yeah, crazy times. So looking into next week, for me, probably for the rest of this month, the big theme is: are we going to see US stock markets bounce back and continue the trend? That's the big thing for me. Are we going to see what's happening there? Let's see what happens, and that's Nasdaq and S&P. So that is the really big thing for me for the rest of this month. And for now, I'd be leaning to yes, but it's not happening yet. I'd also be saying, because it's been a pretty brutal sell-off in these markets over these last couple of weeks. So that's the big thing for me, and everything else is taking a bit of a back seat, if I'm honest, at the moment. But what we'll do now, we'll take a look at some of the stuff you want to look at. A quick reminder: I run a WhatsApp group. As part of the WhatsApp group, I run trading webinars. The next one will be a week on Thursday. So not next Thursday, the Thursday after. The last one I ran a couple of weeks ago, my approach to trading US stocks, 15 minutes per day, what to look at, managing risk, running profits, where to place stops, and all of that. If you'd like access to that, the recording of that webinar, and be on the list for the next live webinar, you just need to join the WhatsApp group. And if you join the WhatsApp group, you get access to all of that stuff. How to join the WhatsApp group? The link is in the description to this video. You can do that. The WhatsApp group is a daily update from me, morning update and an afternoon update. Markets I'm watching, trades I'm running, where my stops are. Any questions can come in during the day. And if you use the code YouTube, you get 20% off the first month. The subscription is £50 a month, but obviously with that 20% off, it's £40 for the first month. And for that, you get access to those 2 webinars. It's well worth £40 of anybody's money. It's not even a cup of coffee a day. So that's that. If you want to find out who I trade with, I've traded with them for a couple of years. bit.ly/David Trade. I trade with them because it's nice and easy and it ties into TradingView, the charting software I use, all of that. So again, the link is in the description down below. And any questions, drop me an email, dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. More than happy to answer any questions. I don't have all the answers, but I've done this for a long time, so I can definitely give you an opinion. Right, let's take a look at what's going on and what you want looking at. So remember, helpful reminder from Richard, US clocks go forward 1 hour on Sunday. This always confuses me when the Americans change their clocks, what we do. So there's only a 4-hour difference between New York and London until 30th of March when it goes back to 5 hours. So thanks for that. So for those of us on this side of the Atlantic, the US markets will start an hour earlier than they do at the moment. So at the moment in the UK, they open at 2:30 from next week because the Americans putting their clocks back or forwards or whatever. It'll be an hour earlier, so it'll be open at 1:30 in the UK next week. Thanks for that. BRIC USD. Right, we're going to kick things off with the world of crazy crypto. BRIC US dollar. Never heard of it. What's it look like? Absolutely crazy. Of course it is. I mean, I'm not a fan of. I do like Bitcoin, but some of these stupid coins, to use the technical term for them, I'm not a fan of them. So for me, what's the trend in BRIC? The trend is down, isn't it? It has fallen like a brick. So for me, the trend is down. Absolutely zero interest. I'm gonna have to go and rinse my eyeballs in Dettol after looking at this chart. So yeah, it's not one for me. I mean, it went nuts whenever that was. Saturday, was that over the last weekend? It was just, these cryptos are crazy, aren't they? So it goes, where do they go from? It goes from 16 to 29. Oh, it's only doubling, I suppose. It's pretty low volatile crypto. It's almost like a store of value crypto if it didn't just go down all the time. So yeah, no, it's not one for me. You know, it's just nuts, isn't it? How can people? You can't trade a market like this, can you? You know, I think some. I'm not saying this is the case with this one, but some of these cryptocurrencies, it's just like buying a lottery ticket with even worse odds than a lottery ticket. That hopefully it just goes nuts one day. But yeah, that is absolutely crazy. That one. What did it do? When did it come to the market? August 23. So it was at 0.047 and it went to 0.4, tenfold increase. Wow. And then here we are at 0.016. Yeah, so not one for me. Not much interest in that one. It's like some of the illiquid shares we look at now and again. I don't think they're particularly suitable for technical analysis. And this, if we had to say anything, I'd say the trend had been down. Would you buy cotton or better to sell? Cotton's interesting. Cotton slipped to a multi-year low, I think, over the last week. There we go. It's an interesting chart. I did trade it on the way up. I remember trading it in 2020. Great trend on the way up in the price of cotton. What did cotton go from? 48 and a bit to 150. So we saw the price of cotton triple in 2 years. And then since then, it's just gone a bit drifty. And then I did wonder, is it trying to build a base, cotton, which is why I'd drawn that line on. And it's just slipped below it. Bang. So I'd have to be a seller. I'd have to be a seller of strength in cotton, I think, because it's just decided it wants to be in a downtrend again, isn't it? So it was 67 in Feb, touched 61 yesterday, so it dropped 10%, didn't it? So yeah. So I'd be a seller in cotton. I did wonder if it was making a base, but that breakdown looks like off we go again, doesn't it? So if I had a stop loss, if I was going short, I'd want to put a stop at least above that high before the slide. 67.5. So interesting market though, because it had been dull. Maybe it was basing, and then it's fallen off a cliff. So yeah, looks quite weak, I think, cotton, but an interesting move. There's so much going on. Just to go off on a bit of a tangent, some of these commodities. I mean, orange juice. The move in orange juice. I mean, my God, You know, 560, 19th of December, 290-ish today. Absolutely swan dived. It is on that long-term trend line though. But anyway, you know, I mean, absolutely crazy move. And then you have, I mean, coffee's calmed down a bit. But again, we had that crazy move in coffee. Not cotton, the other one beginning with C, cocoa. Cocoa, you know, had a crazy run last year, early last year, came into 2024 around 40, touched 120, went sideways, had the breakout in December, and has just pulled all the way back into the range again. So these commodities are all over the place. Everything's all over the place at the moment. It's ridiculous. Just, yeah, go and do something else instead. Everything is too nuts at the moment. But no, that cotton one was interesting. I think the breakdown in cotton. Carver was one of those runners from 29 to 173 in a year. Carver. Are we back on the topic? We're not on. What the heck's that? Cavapoo. There's a cryptocurrency called Cavapoo. Anyway, Carver, 829 to 173 in a year, down to 80. See an opportunity. What do they do then? Carver, consumer restaurants. I mean, that's interesting. Isn't it? I mean, that again is a big reversal in trend, isn't it? I mean, as of today, it's still making a new low for that down move. So I think it's an interesting one to come back to. So that has, I mean, that's halved, isn't it? That was a crazy move, wasn't it? Earnings in November. So that's halved. I would say let's come back to the end of the month, because maybe this old $70 area, the old highs on the way up, ends up being support again on the way back down. Let's see. But so I'd be in no hurry at the moment to do anything. But yeah, interesting one to pop back into it every few weeks and see does it try and build a base. I think. Let's see what happens there. Brick would be one of the currencies. Can be better to the Trump or Millennium. But okay, Brick. No, I don't think so. I exited all my positions. No, I feel I'm not an idiot. No, that's fair enough. I think when in doubt, get out is not a bad strategy. You know, I think I've said lots of times over the years that most of my investments, 90% plus, apart from a few shares, are S&P and NASDAQ ETFs. You know, so I have the conversation with myself at the moment every other day, thinking, oh, should I just dump them all? Dump them all, come out, sit in cash, and see what happens next. You know, I've been I'm sure like a lot of people, you know, been invested in US stocks or US ETFs for a long time over the years, great trends, blah, blah, blah. I was very fortunate to not be invested in the 2022 bear market, if it was a bear market, because I was switching my pensions and I switched them out at the right time, and then everything fell off a cliff, so that was a real fluke. I was really lucky there, and then got back in as things went up and blah, blah, blah. And I do. At the moment, I think, well, what you doing? So, yeah, so well done you. If you think, you know what, exit all your positions. If it doesn't make any sense, go and do something else. You know, absolutely sensible thing to do. Sit on your hands time and be patient. Yes. How many entry setups do you have? It seems infinite. I mean, no, my main setup, or my main thing is trend, obviously, you know. So there's a few little variations on that. But the main thing is I want to go with the trends, you know. So if I'm looking at a daily chart, like the NASDAQ, you know, that trend is up. So if I'm looking at that, I probably want to be a buyer. Or I think I want to be a buyer because the trend is up. Yeah, it's just a question of when do I buy. On the shorter term charts, like the Nikkei. So I'm short the Nikkei this week. Where's the Nikkei gone? I'm a bit knackered by it all this week. That Nikkei this week, that was that was pretty textbook. Someone mentioned it on the WhatsApp group. That was a pretty textbook short on Wednesday or Thursday. You know, so the big thing is the trend. Which way is the trend? And then go with the trend, to be honest. I do have some different day trading setups, but the main thing is still trend. Is it NFP today? Yeah, we had the non-farm payrolls. Nothing major. You can see the volatility again, you know. It's the usual headless chicken over the payrolls. Let's wind the clock back. So the payrolls came out here about an hour and a half ago. That's the market reaction. That's the S&P was trading around 57.38 before the payrolls comes out, runs up to 57.75. And what does it do? All the way back again. Yeah? 12 minutes later, all the way back to where it was before the payrolls came out. So another headless chicken payrolls day. Is it more advantageous to trade stocks than indices, commodities, and FX? I think it depends. I mean, it depends what's moving. FX has been, I think, a tricky market over the last couple of years. I think because everything has been perhaps, all a little bit sideways. There you go. It's pound against the dollar. It's been a bit sideways. So for me, whatever's trending is something I would look at. I mean, obviously, and if it all goes quiet, there'll be something trending somewhere else. I think I've said it a few times that the greatest trades I had in 2019, 2020 was on palladium, which I knew absolutely nothing about, but it was such a great trend. So for me, it's all about trying to find some good trends. The DAX has been the main contribution to my profits this year. Because we've had such a good trend in the DAX, in the German index this year. I've hardly traded the S&P or the Nasdaq this year, and I traded them a lot this year, and I'm glad I didn't, because it's just been, if we look at the S&P and Nasdaq, obviously it's all just been we've had big swings, but it's not actually gone anywhere for 3 months, So I don't think we can say, oh, this asset is better than that asset. I think ultimately it's whatever, for me, whatever trends is the best one. And there's no more questions, so we're going to wrap it up. We're going to wrap it up early there. It's a really odd time. I think this is an odder time than COVID, because at least with that, I mean, we didn't. I mean, obviously things are coming out. Things are getting more and more serious with COVID, and that was the move in COVID. But at the moment, without bringing politics into it, we don't know what's going to come out of the US next. He might open his mouth over the weekend and say we're going to walk back all the tariffs, or we're going to double all the tariffs. I mean, I don't think he'll double the tariffs. It's all crazy. Or we're going to go and support Ukraine. Who knows? It's very much a market driven by news. I'd say more so than for a long time I can remember. It's almost as if a lot of the other stuff just goes out the window. So it's a really interesting time, but absolutely for me it's a confusing time, and I'd much rather do something else. So I'm going to go, and once I've done this, I'm going to go and start watching Netflix Drive to Survive, which has been released in the UK today, and call it a week. So we'll see where we are next week. But I think it is interesting with these big trends. Do we get the bounce in these US stock markets? We're not getting it yet. Let's see what it's like next week. And if you're finding it tough, forget about it. Go and have 2 weeks off looking at markets. Yeah, don't worry about them. They'll still be there in a couple of weeks' time, and hopefully they'll all make sense then. Oh, carbon emissions, Nick. I don't think I've got carbon emissions on on thingy, TradingView. So what's that? So I don't think for some reason it used to be on here, carbon emissions, but I can't find it anymore. Because it used to be, I can remember years ago, it was a good trend. I'll have a look, and if there's anything, if I can find it anywhere, I'll put something in the WhatsApp group a bit later on, and we'll put it in there. Wales to beat Scotland at Murrayfield could happen. Stranger things have happened. It's a strange time around the world, isn't it? So yeah, it could well be Wales, and Wales have been losing since October 23. I think they've not won a game since 2023. So maybe tomorrow's the day. Tell for me that one. I mean, again, it's gone from $25 in December to $8 and a bit last month. I mean, it's just nuts, Goes nowhere for ages, explodes. Bit of a lottery ticket stock, I'd say, that one. So I can't apply much logic to that one. If I had to buy it, I'd put a stop below $8 and then go on holiday and hope it goes up. That's what I would do. But yeah, a bit illogical. Right, we're going to wrap it up there. There's a few last minute ones coming in, but I did say we're going to wrap it up. And that Netflix is not going to watch itself. So if you'd like to join the WhatsApp group, I will do another update for the WhatsApp group this afternoon. Join the WhatsApp group. The link is in the description. Use the code YouTube. It's like this, but every day written down, and lots of Q&As. I won't be here for next week's thingy, next Friday, because I'm going to be away. Well-deserved holiday I'm taking next week from Wednesday, even if I do say so myself. To find out who I trade with, go to bit.ly/DavidTrade. Drop me an email, dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. If you've got any questions, crazy markets. let's see where we are. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time, 21st. So until then, don't blow your account up. And let's see where we are then. Good luck with your trading.